It was during a cold, lonely drive one night that a creative spark was lit.
When Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery hit the screens in 1997, no one expected it to become a cultural phenomenon. They defied every sense of the norm, poked fun at James Bond, talked about Princess Diana, swung catchphrases around, and often used parody. It had its success not just monetarily, but in influencing the James Bond culture to shift. Yet the story is not like any other. There are some things yet unknown. Here are 20 weird facts you didn't know about it. Number 20. Dr. Evil is widely believed to be based on Lorne Michaels. From the moment he appears on the screen, Dr. Evil feels oddly familiar with his slow, deliberate speech, pinky pose, and even dry sarcasm. For some good reasons, it has been believed that Mike Myers based the iconic villain on Lorne Michaels. If you're wondering who Lorne Michaels is, he is Saturday Night Live's longtime creator and producer. He had a famously unique speaking style with a low voice, long pauses, and a habit of drawing out certain words. Myers got his big break on Saturday Night Live under Michaels' leadership and had been around him long enough to pick up on those little character traits. He had spent 6 seasons on the show, sufficient time to know and study his boss Michael well enough. It was not just Mike who had picked up these character traits or voice. Other cast members had too. Other cast members, like Dana Carvey, have been known for doing spot-on impersonations of Michaels. This is part of why Carvey was reportedly annoyed when he saw Austin Powers, because Dr. Evil sounded just like the impression he had already been doing. Myers has been relatively coy about confirming the connection outright. In some of his interviews, he dances around the subject, sometimes denying it with a wink or a nod. But in others, he has openly admitted that Michaels was part of the inspiration. Interestingly, Michael has taken the comparisons in stride. Although he has never made a public fuss about the parody, those close to him have said that he found the character funny but slightly exaggerated. Whether intentional or not, one thing remains certain. The voice, mannerisms, and tone of Dr. Evil make him one of the strangest villains in comedy history. And it was a caricature built on Myers' real-life boss, Michael Lorne. On the other hand, his looks were inspired by the classic James Bond villain Ernst Blofeld. Number 19. Elizabeth Hurley used red tape to cover up. One of the most memorable scenes in Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery is the nude hiding sequence near the film's end. In it, Austin and Vanessa Kensington, played by Elizabeth Hurley, move around a hotel suite completely naked, while carefully placed props, fruits, and furniture cover their private parts. The gag is classic slapstick, but what happened behind the scenes was much more calculated, especially for Hurley. During filming, Hurley took extra precautions to protect her privacy. Although the scene was choreographed to avoid actual exposure, she reportedly applied strips of red tape over her bosom. The tape wasn't just for modesty, but also a deliberate move to prevent long-lens set photographers from capturing and selling unauthorized topless pictures of her. Her concerns were valid given how the tabloids and paparazzi were at the time. Her decision was practical and protective because in the 1990s, leaked on-set photos were a major problem in Hollywood, especially for actresses filming risque scenes. Each of these private moments, sometimes taken without consent, could easily be sold to tabloids or adult publications. Using the red tape, she made any attempt at selling such photos useless for resale and publication. This detail shows how fiercely women on set had to protect their boundaries even during the controlled shoots. Number 18. He created Austin Powers as a tribute to his father. Mike Myers openly described Austin Powers as a tribute to his late father, Eric Myers, who passed away in 1991. Though Myers was born in Canada, his parents were British immigrants, and their cultural influence shaped him from an early age. Growing up, their house was almost always filled with the sounds of Peter Sellers, The Goon Show, Monthly Python, and the suave swagger of James Bond. Myers also stated that his father often quoted classic British sketches around the house and encouraged his kids to appreciate the dry wit and humor of UK television. Myers was deeply affected by the loss of his father. He later explained in interviews that the idea for Austin Powers came from an emotional place. The British spy character was his way of acknowledging and honoring the sensibilities that shaped his comedic voice. He said, "A tribute to my father who introduced me to James Bond, Peter Sellers, and all the great British comic actors." So, when next you watch Austin Powers, remember that it was created as a tribute with so many good memories from one who taught Mike Myers to love comedy. Number 17. Myers wasn't originally going to play multiple roles. Austin Powers did not just play the title character, he also played the film's bald, menacing, and hilariously awkward villain named Dr. Evil. Throughout the trilogy, Myers would go on to portray several other characters, including Fat Bastard and Goldmember. However, one man's playing of different roles was not a part of the original plan. Initially, Myers wanted another comedy superstar to take on the role of Dr. Evil, as the idea of separating the hero and villain only made sense. However, Myers decided to take on the role himself due to last-minute plan disruption and a scheduling conflict. The decision was not just creative but also practical. His playing both roles saved them some extra money they originally would have used to cast another actor. It also gave Myers more creative control over the dynamics between characters, including the contrasting personalities and comedic timing. The result became one of the franchise's defining features. Myers' portrayal of Dr. Evil provided a comedic energy that contrasted perfectly with Austin's over-the-top charm. What started as a backup plan became a trademark, and Myers' ability to fully embody such distinct characters became central to the franchise's success. Number 16. Dana Carvey was annoyed by the movie and Dr. Evil. Mike Myers and Dan Carvey became a famous comedic duo thanks to their work on Saturday Night Live and their roles in the wildly successful Wayne's World films. However, their relationship was not always smooth behind the scenes, and the tension just grew worse after Austin Powers was released in theaters. The reason for the tension was the role of Dr. Evil, the bald, soft-spoken villain played by Myers. The character is widely believed to be a parody of Saturday Night Live creator Lorne Michaels. Here was the bone of contention. According to Carvey, he had been doing a Lorne Michaels impression for years, and he believed Myers borrowed that impression for Dr. Evil without giving credit. Carvey had publicly admitted that he found it irritating. In interviews, he has said that he noticed the similarities immediately and felt that Myers had lifted his take on Michaels and used it to create one of the most iconic villains in modern comedy. While Carvey didn't take legal action or confront Myers directly, he later revealed that the situation left him feeling uncomfortable and creatively sidelined. This awkwardness added to the long-standing creative tensions between the two former collaborators. They reportedly didn't speak for years after Wayne's World 2, and although they eventually reconnected, this moment in their history remains a quiet but notable rift. So, while the audiences laughed at Dr. Evil's strange mannerisms, one of Myers' closest former comedy partners wasn't exactly impressed. For Carvey, Austin Powers didn't just parody James Bond, it also hit a little too close to home. Number 15. One of the assassins is a Beatles reference. At the movie's beginning, we are introduced to Dr. Evil as he activates a panel to eliminate several of his failed henchmen. On his console, their names flash across the screen as Generalissimo, Jurgen, Don Luigi, and Rita. While most of these names seem like generic international villain types, one of the names does not just stand out, but so does her dress. Her name is Rita, and she is dressed like a British meter maid, complete with a uniform and cap. This is no accident. Her character directly references the 1967 Beatles song, Lovely Rita. The song opens with the line, "Lovely Rita, meter maid." The track from the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album is about a man who becomes infatuated with a parking enforcement officer, turning what could be a frustrating figure into someone oddly charming. The film does not call attention to the reference, making it one of those moments that could easily be missed if one were not paying close attention. However, fans of the 1960s British culture would likely recognize the connection instantly. Yet, this is just one of the many layered homages hidden in the movie's production design and character details. This role, dedicated to the Beatles, highlights the depth of Mike Myers' pop culture knowledge and the production team's commitment to weaving retro references throughout the film. Even in scenes like one where villains are unceremoniously dropped into fire pits, there's still room for a cheeky tribute to Britain's most iconic band. Number 14. The movie only became a hit after its home video release. When Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery hit the theaters in May 1997, it wasn't an instant blockbuster. The movie earned a modest $53,800,000 worldwide when it was created on a budget of about $16,500,000. While the movie was not a failure, it wasn't exactly a major hit either. Many people considered it a niche comedy and funny, but too odd to become a mainstream success. Yet, they would receive a shocker. Throughout the late 1990s, VHS and DVD rentals were significant in the entertainment industry. Word of mouth began to spread after the film's theatrical run ended. People who had skipped it in cinemas started renting it at home and discovering how weird, quotable, and hilarious it was. Some witty phrases too quickly entered pop culture, like "yeah, baby," and even among people who hadn't seen the movie in theaters. Response to the home video release was so overwhelming that the movie's studio, New Line Cinema, quickly greenlit a sequel. Industry insiders said the film's video and sales numbers were significantly higher than expected. It promptly skyrocketed Austin Powers from a modest comedy into a genuine cult phenomenon. Even though this kind of post-theatrical success was rare, it wasn't unheard of in the movie world. It happened with Office Space and The Big Lebowski, which found their success stories after leaving the theaters. Without the home video boom, there would have been no sequels, franchise, or cultural legacy. In many ways, Austin Powers did not become an international man of mystery until he landed in America's living rooms. Number 13. The cat's real name is just as funny as his movie name. In Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery, one of the film's strange recurring pets is Dr. Evil's hairless cat, whom he named and affectionately calls Mr. Bigglesworth. The cat's deadpan presence and Dr. Evil's melodramatic delivery of the name helped turn Mr. Bigglesworth into an unlikely fan favorite. Here's what many people do not know. The cat's real-life name is just as entertaining as his on-screen alias. The cat used in the film was a Sphinx breed known for its hairless appearance and somewhat alien-like features. It was a perfect match for Dr. Evil's eccentric style. The animal actor that played Mr. Bigglesworth was named Ted Nugent. It was intended to be a pun on the name of a rock guitarist, Ted Nugent, and a sly acknowledgement of the cat's fearless body. The absurdity of the real name is precisely the kind of layered humor that fits perfectly within the world of Austin Powers. When Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery was over, Ted Gent returned for the sequels and became a franchise fixture. While he never had any lines, his presence often stole scenes, especially when Dr. Evil petted him dramatically while plotting world domination. Number 12. The film helped change the direction of the James Bond franchise. Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery was a loving parody of spy films, especially the James Bond series. Its influence stretched beyond comedy and helped shape the direction of the James Bond franchise itself. By the 1990s, the Bond formula was very familiar. It comprised megalomaniac individuals, glamorous women, gadgets, and action movie moves. Austin Powers hilariously exaggerated all of these elements, from the villain lairs to overly complicated death traps, and audiences reacted strongly. The movie mocked the classic Bond tropes and highlighted how formulaic and outdated they had become. According to multiple film analysts and pop culture critics, the Bond producers took notice. When Austin Powers became a cult hit, particularly after its home video success, it served as a wake-up call that if the Bond clichés did not evolve, they would be seen as a joke in a short period. Hence, they began to shift. This became evident in the 2006 reboot of the fray Casino Royale starring Daniel Craig. They no longer included the one-liners, gimmicky villains, or even the implausible gadgets. Instead, the film adopted a grittier, more grounded tone focused on character development, brutal realism, and emotional stakes. In an interview, even Bond screenwriters and insiders acknowledged the impact of parody films like Austin Powers, which held up a mirror to their genre. So, while Austin Powers was intended as a tribute to the 60s spy films, it inadvertently helped force one of cinema's most iconic franchises to modernize and stay relevant. Number 11. Joe Sun, who played Random Task, is serving a life sentence for shocking crimes. In Austin Powers, the villain Dr. Evil has a henchman named Random Task, a parody of the James Bond villain Oddjob from Goldfinger in 1964. Random Task, known for silently tossing a deadly shoe instead of a steel-rimmed hat, was portrayed by Joe Sun, a martial artist and actor. However, his son's real-life story is far darker and disturbing than anything seen in the film. Years after the movie's release, Joe Sun's criminal past came to light, shockingly and horrifyingly. In 2008, his DNA was linked to an unsolved 1990 gang sexual molestation case in California. The brutal attack involved multiple assailants and had gone cold for nearly 2 decades until a mandatory DNA sample, taken from Sun due to a separate criminal charge, matched evidence from the scene. He was arrested and charged with multiple felonies. In 2011, Sun was convicted of felony torture as the statute of limitations for the rape charge had expired. He was sentenced to life in prison. His crimes were detailed as exceptionally violent and included psychological abuse of the victim. By 2017, the case grew even more disturbing when Joe Sun was accused of murdering his prison cellmate. The 50-year-old Essex offender named Michael Thomas Graham was found beaten to death. Though Sun was the prime suspect, the murder remains under investigation with limited public updates. Joe Sun's inclusion in the cast of Austin Powers has since become a disturbing footnote in the film's history. Due to the crimes, he has been completely disowned by the fan community and the film industry. Number 10. Austin Powers' glasses are an homage to another film. Austin Powers' most recognizable features are his over-the-top 1960s fashion, which included velvet suits, frilly shirts, wild patterns, and thick black glasses. Yet, while they fit the character's retro vibe, the glasses weren't just a costume design choice. A classic British comedy character from an earlier film inspired them. Mike Myers has acknowledged that Austin's glasses are a direct homage to Michael Caine's character Harry Palmer in the 1965 spy film The Ipcress File. In contrast to James Bond's suave and polished demeanor, Harry Palmer was more grounded, working class, and wore large black-rimmed glasses, a distinctive visual trait that made him stand out from the typical secret agent. Myers grew up in British cinema thanks to his father and was a massive fan of Caine's performance. He saw Palmer as the anti-Bond. He was a spy, but still cool, awkward, and more relatable. The connection came full circle when Michael Caine joined the franchise in 2002, Austin Powers in Goldmember, where he played Austin's father, Nigel Powers. He even wore a version of the same glasses for the role, further cementing the homage and giving longtime fans a wink of recognition. Number 9. Rob Lowe was almost in the series sooner than you think. Most fans of Ron Lowe from the Austin Powers universe remember his hilarious appearance in the spy film The Spy Who Shagged Me. He played a younger version of Number 2, which Robert Wagner initially portrayed. Lowe nailed the impression and became one of the standout supporting characters in the sequel. However, many people do not realize that Rob Lowe almost joined the franchise earlier in the very first film. According to various reports, Lowe was initially considered for a part in Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, but scheduling conflicts got in the way. By the time the movie was shot, Lowe was already committed to other projects and had to decline the opportunity. Yet, he remained on Mike Myers' radar for a role. Myers and Lowe had known each other socially for years, and when the sequel was developing, Myers remembered Lowe's interest. This time, the scheduling worked out, and Lowe joined the cast and delivered a performance that perfectly matched the franchise's tone. His younger version of Number 2 was so well received that it helped set the standard for more elaborate flashbacks and time travel scenes in the sequels. Interestingly, his involvement with the second film was one of the examples of Austin Powers blending real Hollywood icons with completely absurd characters. Even though he missed the first movie, his eventual arrival felt like a natural fit, and his uncanny Robert Wagner impression earned him praise from fans and critics alike. So even if his appearance was in the second film, he was almost cast in the first. Number 8. Mike Myers started thinking up Austin Powers while driving home one day. The idea for Austin Powers was not the product of a long brainstorming session. Instead, it hit Mike Myers unexpectedly while driving home one night in the early 1990s. He had been listening to Burt Bacharach's 1965 The Look of Love on the radio when the sound took him back in time, and suddenly, the character of Austin Powers came to life in his mind. He later explained that the character was inspired by a nostalgic longing for the comedy and culture his father loved. He began to imagine a British spy with all the style, swagger, and grooviness of the 1960s icons, yet none of the self-awareness. The concept was simple but bizarre. He wondered if a man like James Bond was frozen in time and suddenly woke up in the modern world, unchanged. By the time he got home, Myers began developing not just Austin himself, but also the exaggerated villains, over-the-top gadgets, and even the sense of humor that would become central to the movie. He also began sketching out Dr. Evil, the film's antagonist. That one car ride launched Austin Powers, which released 3 parts. The inspiration did not come from a meeting with producers or a studio. It simply began with a song, a wave of inspiration and nostalgia. Number 7. The Hoffs connection may have gotten the director involved. The movie was a proper feature film debut for director Jay Roach. Although he had previously directed a film in 1990 titled Zoo Radio, he had only been acknowledged in the credits as M.J. Roach. However, Austin Powers put him on the map of Hollywood as a relatively unknown director who landed one of the most iconic comedies of the decade. It can be traced back to a personal connection involving Mike Myers and Susanna Hoffs, the lead singer of the 1980s pop band The Bangles. Note that at the time, Myers and Hoffs were friends. Here's the catch. Hoffs and Jay Roach had tied the knot in 1993, a long time before Austin Powers came to conception. When Myers began looking for a director who could understand his offbeat humor and bring a unique visual flair to the 1960 spy film, Roach was already on his radar. While it has never been officially confirmed that Hoffs was directly responsible for the connection, the timeline and relationships make it more likely. Myers has praised Roach for his directing instincts, while Roach has often credited Myers with helping him land the project. There is no direct mention of Hoffs. Their collaboration would not just stop here. It also birthed 2 sequels, changing the trajectory of Roach's directing course. It would become the big break that ushered him into bigger projects. Number 6. It took Mike Myers 2 weeks to write the script's first draft. While Mike Myers might be known for his on-screen performances, his talent as a writer is also crucial to his success. This is especially true of Austin Powers, international man of mystery. As surprising as it sounds, it took Myers only 2 weeks to complete the script's first draft. The idea for Austin Powers, which was born out of a love for 1960s British pop culture, was highly influenced by his father, who introduced him to British comedians and spy films growing up. After watching a Burt Bacharach song and receiving inspiration, he began writing that night in earnest what later became Austin Powers. Working quickly and passionately, he completed the screenplay's first draft in 14 days. He later refined and expanded it, but the foundational ideas like the characters of Austin Powers and Dr. Evil, the story of the time-traveling spy, and even the tone were all present in the initial version. During the writing process, Myers didn't just create a satire of James Bond, he also infused personal nostalgia. The character of Austin Powers was a tribute to his father, who had passed away just before the project began, and Myers said his father would have loved the flimsy mix of swinging 60s flair and cheeky humor. So while it may have taken just 2 weeks to draft, Austin Powers was a lifetime in the making, and the speed of its creation only underscores how deeply the concept was embedded in Myers' imagination. Number 5. A couple of cast members had scheduling conflicts. Despite the assemblage of a solid cast, a few roles were initially meant for other actors who had to decline due to scheduling issues. One of the most notable examples was Jim Carrey, who was the original choice to play Dr. Evil. Mike Myers had envisioned Carrey for the role because of his comedic timing and mainstream appeal. However, Carrey was already committed to filming Liar Liar, which had scheduling conflicts that couldn't be resolved. As a result, Myers decided to take on the role himself. Another actor who missed out on appearing in the film was Pamela Anderson. Known at the time for her role on Baywatch and Public Profile, she was initially offered a role in Austin Powers. However, she has scheduling conflicts and couldn't participate. Yet these scheduling shakeups were for the best. Why? Because each of the characters' replacements played their new roles iconically. Mike's dual role added to its absurdity, while Elizabeth's helped launch her into greater global fame. Number 4. Myers' old comedy partner has a small role. Before Austin Powers, Mike Myers had a comedy partner named Neil Malarkey. The two formed an act called Malarkey and Myers in the early 1980s while performing in London's comedy scene. They were both members of the Comedy Store Players, a prominent British improvisation group, and regularly performed live together in sketch and improv shows. Though their careers eventually took different paths, Myers didn't forget his longtime friend. In Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery, Neil briefly appears as the customs officer who questions Austin when he arrives in the 1990s. In the scene, Austin is stopped at the airport after time traveling from the 60s. Malarkey's character delivers one of the movie's more understated comedic moments as he scans Austin's oddly packed luggage, including Swedish-made men's enlargers. The cameo was a reminder of Myers' early comedy roots and a way to include someone who played a meaningful role in his career development. Although Malarkey did not become as widely known in Hollywood, he continued working as an actor, a writer, and a communication coach in the UK. Number 3. Pamela Anderson was almost in the film. Before Elizabeth Hurley was cast as Austin Powers' love interest, Vanessa Kensington, the production wanted a different 1990s icon, Pamela Anderson. Pamela was a significant pop culture figure at the time thanks to her role in Baywatch. She also appeared in countless magazines. Her popularity made her a strong candidate for the role, especially since the movie parodied the sexy spy girl trope popularized by James Bond films. According to interviews and casting notes, Pamela Anderson was offered the role, but ultimately turned it down. Reports suggest that Anderson passed because she didn't want to be typecast or seen as relying solely on her looks for film roles. Although already known for glamour, she sought a different acting opportunity. The comedic nudity and sugary role of the Austin Powers role might not have aligned with what she wanted to pursue then. After she declined, the part went to Elizabeth Hurley, who had already gained public attention due to her modeling career and high-profile relationship with Hugh Grant. At the movie's end, Hurley was one of the defining faces of the Austin Powers franchise, and her performance was praised for balancing beauty and charm with wit. Pamela Anderson would go on to star in the opening sequence of the second film, Austin Powers, the Spy Who Shagged Me, in a brief cameo playing herself. Though she never played a leading role in the franchise, her connection to Austin Powers remains notable. Number 2. The role of Frau Farbacina was originally meant to be for Roseanne Barr. Frau Farbacina, the loud and intense henchwoman of Dr. Evil, became one of the iconic characters in Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery. A role played hilariously by Mindy Sterling, she's remembered for her exaggerated German accent, screeching delivery, and commanding presence. However, most people do not know that the one initially intended for this role was Roseanne Barr. Mike Myers had envisioned the character as a parody of classic villainous figures, especially those found in Bond films and World War II-era movies. He wanted someone who could bring comedic strength and intimidating energy to the role. Given Roseanne's reputation for bold cameos and a brash on-screen persona, she was an early favorite for the part. However, she did not take the role. The reason remains unclear, although some rumors have it that it could be due to either scheduling issues or creative decisions. However, the vacancy left room for Mindy Sterling to audition, and she brought a unique interpretation to the character. She gave Freya a manic, shrill energy that felt absurd and oddly believable within the film's over-the-top world. Her chemistry with Myers, especially during scenes in Dr. Evil's lair, helped elevate the character beyond what had originally been imagined. The audience so loved her performance that she had to be recalled as Frau Farbacina for both sequels, with her role expanded each time. Number 1. One joke was too much for the UK audiences after Princess Diana's demise. There's a scene where Number 2, a role played by Robert Wagner, updates Dr. Evil on what he missed during his 30-year cryogenic slumber. One of the updates is about the British royal family. In his words, Prince Charles did have an affair. He admitted it, and they are now divorced. While this line sat well with audiences from the United States, when the film debuted in May 1997, things took a tragic and unexpected turn before its United Kingdom release. On August 31, 1997, just a few days before it was set to hit UK theaters, Princess Diana passed away in a car crash in Paris. Her demise stunned the world and plunged the UK into mourning. With emotions still raw and Diana's marriage to Prince Charles under constant media scrutiny for years, the film's distributors opted to cut the line from the UK version out of sensitivity. Although the joke was not in a direct way meant to cause harm to anyone, it, however, referenced Prince Charles's affair and divorce. Two sensitive topics were now seen through a much more somber lens in the wake of Princess Diana's passing. This small but significant edit highlighted how quickly world events can affect what the audiences are willing to accept in comedy, especially in a subject matter that involves lives. The removed joke, however, remained intact in other international versions, including in the US, but the UK audiences were spared from the joke. Mike Myers used his own money to keep creative control. Myers was determined to preserve his vision with Austin Powers, international man of mystery. So he took a bold step to ensure it wasn't tampered with by studio pressure or mainstream expectations. He diverted his salary and invested significant money into the film's production. According to him, this decision was made so he could retain a substantial degree of creative control, especially over the film's unique humor, retro aesthetic, and parody-driven narrative. He was adamant about maintaining the quirky tone and character design, fearing that too much studio interference would dilute the project's originality. His gamble paid off. Although the film's initial box office performance was modest, Austin Powers became a massive success through home video and became a cultural phenomenon. His investment was both financial and art. His commitment to the film top-notch, and as he shaped the film, an offbeat, stylized comedy that resonated with both audiences and critics alike. In retrospect, Myers' decision to back the movie personally is a significant reason why Austin Powers remained true to its parody roots and didn't get watered down to something more conventional. Sometimes our inspiration can come from even the tiniest memory. What started as a nostalgic feeling through a song became a global success. Also, you do not always have to look for success from only one direction. When the theaters didn't work out in Austin Powers' favor, DVD and VCDs did. Do not box yourself or your potential. What do you like about this story? Please share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed watching this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks for watching.